When you start to think about mining on the geopolitical scale, if you will, so we've got El Salvador, they're in the game now with the volcano mining. China obviously was doing all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to say where I know this from, but Venezuela, they're mining. There's other countries that are mining.
Sure.
Maybe not the most friendly to the United States. What do you think is the milestones or inflection points where we go from maybe countries that are not so friendly to the United States and or small countries like El Salvador mining to everyone's mining? Like, what's it going to take for the United States to start mining?
The United States is already mining.
Okay,
maybe.
I know
they might have like 10 or 20 megawatts running somewhere in the Midwest to test it out. Maybe. It's hypothetically speaking. But it's a matter of national security, right? When it comes to mining, when you're talking about what Bitcoin is, right? Whether it's a store of value, it's a medium of exchange, it is the future financial instrument that many, many things are going to be built on top of. Nations would have to be absolutely out of their mind to not be getting some exposure to the underlying infrastructure which supports it. So the U.S., I think, is on the front foot. We've had a lot of conversations with the government in D.C., state governments to help to educate them, but they are very forward thinking when it comes to supporting this. But I think that what we're going to see, and we're seeing it already, is nations around the world who want to move from the third to the second to the first class, right? They want to become these first world countries. They now know that being early with this will take them there. The move in El Salvador is going to be a big one that proves out in 20 to 30 years.
I want to play a game with you. It's called like story poker.
Okay.
And so I'll tell you one story, then you got to tell me one in return. Okay. So I know for a fact that there's a federal law enforcement agency that was mining Bitcoin in 2012, 2013, very early on. And what they realized was they couldn't get the budget to go buy Bitcoin in one of the exchanges and then use that in undercover operations. So what they did was, it was very easy, though, to get budget approved by computers.
Sure.
Of course, you need computers. So they bought mining equipment. They mined the Bitcoin. It also was untraceable because it was basically, virgin Bitcoin, if you will. And then they would take that Bitcoin and they would use it in undercover buys, et cetera. They could trace it. Somebody who participated in this told me this one time after they had left.
Wow.
I was blown away. I was like, man. And not only to be doing it the way they did it, it made sense in hindsight as to why they would get computers approved versus go purchase directly, but also to be doing it that early. Very, very good. Your turn. You tell me a story.
So, so this is how you get in trouble. Right? No, but I will say there is a North African country that it was a hot spot for the United States a few years ago. A movie was made about it. There may have been some emails that a person didn't manage properly that caused some issues. And they are now getting into Bitcoin mining. And it's actually at the presidential level that they're looking to do this. There's also, I live in Latvia for the majority of the year. There's a very close neighbor of Latvia that, may have stopped a plane not too long ago to remove a journalist. They're mining Bitcoin with nuclear power. So you have countries now that, Compass can never serve because of lists and sanctions. They are all mining Bitcoin. And I don't believe that they're mining Bitcoin to skirt sanctions. I believe that they're mining Bitcoin because they see it as the future and they want to boost their economy. They want to grow that wealth with.
Why aren't they talking about it publicly?
Why would you? Most miners don't talk publicly about their operations because it's just a threat vector, right? Mm-hmm. If you're not a public company that needs to pump your stock, why talk about it at all? Stack in silence and just be happy with that.
Yeah. All right. I got another story for you. A lot of people don't know that North Korea, one of the biggest revenue sources now, comes from either hacking exchanges or mining as well.
Okay.
Right? If they basically have access to it. I've read a number of reports that have talked about how they have sanctions. They're cut off from the global financial system. Mm-hmm. There's ways that they can do other things that end up being pretty effective. When you look at places like Venezuela, North Korea, others, it feels like those countries are doing it out of necessity, right? Developing nations, they're not bad actors. They're not adversaries necessarily to the U.S. They're also doing it out of necessity. They want to move forward their economy. They want to do all this stuff. When do maybe non-U.S. developed nations, when does France or Spain or the UK, when do they get in the game? Not because it's a necessity, but because we're going to get rich, right? We're going to benefit from this economically, and it is more so the innovator's dilemma, and we're going to disrupt ourselves on purpose because we see this as the future versus we got no other shot at, leapfrogging all these countries. So like, screw it. Let's go all in and see what happens.
They'll probably be late, right? I mean, this is all cyclical. So you're going to see the countries that are the first movers, that are forward thinking. They're going to get into the game. And by the time the bigger established countries want to get in, they'll come and they'll throw a bunch of money, but they'll be late to it. So the United States, I think, will be among the first of the developed nations to come out in support of Bitcoin mining, just because it's a massive, you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry now within the borders that they're able to tax. They're not going to, shun that revenue or send it somewhere else. France, Germany, the socialist states of Europe, is going to take them a while. I mean, they creep. Their government creeps. It moves very, very slow.
Yeah. Well, they all got suits and ties and act really important. I got 2 more questions and then we'll let you go. First is, talk to me about the energy mix. So we've seen, obviously, all the nonsense about China.
Sure.
Now we've got Texas is becoming a huge hotspot, a number of places in the Midwest. Here in the U.S., we've got the Bitcoin Mining Council. We've got people publishing energy mix. Like, just what's your read on the whole? Is it environmentally friendly? Is it not? Does it matter? What is the mix? Like, how do you think about it?
So when I think about energy just in general, right, when you talk about the advancement of any society, it requires the consumption of as much energy as possible. The one thing that we're going to start to see in the United States, because of like the decommissioning of power plants, we're going to see rolling blackouts, right? Business cannot happen if there's no power for buildings. So we're seeing New York and California and other places be impacted, and we'll continue to see that. So my read on what the energy consumption of Bitcoin is that it's a feature and not a bug. We want the network to consume as much energy as possible. Now, when it comes to the mix that people are using, Bitcoin miners are always going to gravitate towards the most plentiful, cheapest sources of energy. And for the most part, those tend to be renewable. Those tend to be hydro. Those tend to be nuclear. So we're going to see the gravitation towards those naturally. The information that's being put out by different actors, whether it's the Bitcoin Mining Council or these other public companies, they all have motives for why they're doing this. My guess is that when it comes to, let's say, the Bitcoin Mining Council, and, Michael Saylor has done a lot for Bitcoin, so not to pick on him too much. But when you think about BlackRock, right, which is a big owner of MicroStrategy's shares, they are big proponents of ESG. And having someone on your cap table or someone that holds that much of your available shares that's a proponent of something, it's going to force your hand on certain matters, which I think is why he's been involved, and he is now on the front foot trying to put more information out about the energy mix that Bitcoin's using.
Talk to me about, to finish up, the decentralization of the network. 60+% was in China and other Asian countries. Now it seems like maybe the U.S. has got like 25% or so of the mining. We've seen Wyoming recently come out and say they want 5% of the hash rate. We've seen Texas come out and say that they want 50% of the hash rate.
Yeah.
We see other countries that obviously are getting in the game.
Yeah.
How do you think about decentralization? Is there a healthy percentage that a country should have? Should we be concerned if all of a sudden the U.S. had 75%? Like, would that be a downside? Like, just how do you think about that?
Bitcoin's non-state money, right? So if you take the ability to print cash from any government, you steal their thunder. I think that it's very dangerous for an overwhelming majority of Bitcoin's hash rate to be located within any country's borders. I think that, before it was 60% in China, we're going to see it creep up on 60% in the United States, and Bitcoiners will again be up in arms about the fact that there's too much hash rate within America's borders. What we will also see, though, is a diversification out of these two main countries. We'll see some in Canada. We'll see in the United States. We will see in South American countries. And what I think will be the natural effect is that Bitcoiners will then focus attention on new developing nations where they can put this hash rate. And those nations will be open to welcoming it because they understand what a boon it will be for their economy to bring that in. So decentralization is very important. Having too much hash rate within any country should worry every Bitcoiner. But I think that as just a function of this market, Bitcoiners will naturally look to move hash rate out of countries that are amassing too much of it.
How much of your business is in just the United States versus other international countries?
So the majority of our customer base is in the United States. The majority of the hash rate that we're managing for customers is split basically between the US, Canada, and Russia. We have a big part of our machines that are running in Russia right now.
And do you own the real estate? Like
No,
where you're hosting
no.
these?
You say McDonald's, bro?
No, I'm just
Airbnb, right? Think of it like Airbnb. So these facilities come to us and they say, hey, look, I've got this space. We verify them, right? We make them a super host, if you will.
Yep.
And then they can list on our site.
Gotcha.
So